Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Shaking Hands. I'm your host, Jack Moran. You can find me on Instagram at Blue Collar Kid. That is Blue Collar KEHD. We have a very special guest today, Jose Goldner, one of my entrepreneurial mentors and business partner. What's going on, Jose?
Well, good.
Yeah, so kind of this podcast, we are trying to bring in successful entrepreneurs to talk about their experiences. So hopefully someone that is looking to make the jump into entrepreneurship or has just started as an entrepreneur and is looking to get to the next checkpoint can kind of resonate with some of those experiences. So I've read through and used the framework that you use to introduce people into the world of entrepreneurship with your programs, Briggs Capital Education, and Business Leaders of the Future. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, and I teach this to, it can be a child as young as 10 years old, and it can be somebody that's 50 years old. It doesn't. It's basically the 4 steps. Is the first is mindset, developing the mindset, the internal belief system. I can do it. I will do anything I can to succeed, and I'm going to have consistency in that mindset, the mental fortitude to withstand risk and to make sure that I reach my goals. The second step is visualization, which I believe that you have to have a dream. You have to connect details together to visualize exactly what you want. And a lot of people, they don't have a good visualization of how they want their future to be. And I'm talking about, like, where do you want to live? When you walk outside, are your feet touching sand? Are they touching grass? Is your house made of wood? Is it made of concrete? Are you in front of the ocean? Are you in mountains? And what are you eating? And getting into very specifics about visualization, I think, helps you to define exactly how you want to live. So that's the second step. The third step is process. And, a dream doesn't get grounded unless you have a process. And so what are you going to do that? And so I call that the possibility game. Once you set a process in place, then you understand that it's possible, because you're taking step 1, step 2, step 3, and this is how much money I want to make, and this is how I'm going to make that money. And so that's when you get into the numbers, the finances, the very specific attainable objectives, right? And so that's concrete, and that's sequential. And so you're downloading that visualization, the abstract, the dream, into specific attainable goals. And then the last step is a very important step, and it's very simple. It's execution. So execution, when I teach it to a 10-year-old, I teach it where I tell them, like, execution is about making a decision every single day. And so I talk a lot about happiness is a decision. It's discipline, because you got to wake up every day and say, today I'm going to feel awesome. I'm going to feel extraordinary. I'm going to make the same decision that I wanted to make yesterday, and the same decision I'm going to make tomorrow, which is I'm going to be a successful business person. I'm going to go out there and generate more money. I'm going to go out there and do things that push those goals. Because you can have these great plans. You can have the dream. You can have the process all laid out. You can have the mindset, but you know what? You don't make the decision. And you forget about it, and then a month goes by, and you said, you know what? I was supposed to make $20,000, $30,000 more a month, and I didn't do it. I swept it under the rug. I procrastinated. I just didn't do it. And I look at people all the time, and I go, you know what? You're not consistent with decisions. And so execution and making that decision every day is key.
What is the little bitch that you talk about a lot?
Well, that voice is basically past beliefs that sometimes we tend to live with. Somebody criticized you as a little kid, and somehow you have a negative anchor, is what I call it, where you have a traumatic event that you internalized, and that gives you an excuse to give yourself to not do something. It can be, everybody told you weren't good at math and finances, and you weren't. Everybody obviously always is inclined to say, oh, you can't do that. Oh, you can't go to Mars and lose $300 million a year like they tell Elon Musk, right? Oh, you can't. That company's not worth this. And you hear a lot of negativity all around you. And if you let that affect your mindset, that is a good way to lose sight of your objective. And when you're an entrepreneur, you cannot have that lack of discipline to let anything negative affect you. You have to have absolutely 100% positive thoughts about everything that you're doing and everybody you talk to. So I believe in having that discipline. And in the end, I think that's one of the definitions that I have of leadership is that unwavering self-control of, this is the direction we're going, this is why we're going to be successful, and this is how we're going to do it. That's leadership, is that fortitude and not succumbing to the ups and downs of everyday challenges and problems. We're all going to have problems, and they're just going to get bigger as your business grows. And so that resiliency is what it's all about. And some of the greatest gladiators and conquistadores and et cetera, why did people follow them? Because they were just relentless. And we're going to conquer more. We're going to do more. And so you're always pushing people as a leader to do more.
I like the quote, and I don't know who said it, but it goes something like, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And for me, that means, wherever your mindset is going to kind of determine your reality. Wherever your head's at is going to determine your outcome. So if you believe you can do it, you probably will. If you believe you can't do it, you probably won't. But you talk, when you were talking about that voice in your head that tells you why to quit and why you can't do it, you said a lot of times it comes from belief systems. Where do belief systems come from?
Well, I think obviously your upbringing is a big part of belief systems, because when you're a baby, you're born, and your communication with your parents is really the first voices that you have. And so our parents obviously were influenced by their parents, and so you have this generational momentum of this is how we survive in life. And so it's very easy for parents to kind of impose how they see their view of life, and people's view of life could have limitations that they were passed on by their parents. I know entire families that they have a belief system that, hey, look, we are teachers, and we don't make money, and you'll never make money because that's not something that our family believes in. And so they literally just, for generations, have been rejecting the idea that money is possible, and that money is a entirely reachable thing. And so a little child can grow up just hearing at home, like, you'll never make money, and people that have money are evil, or they do it sacrificing their values and ethical systems. And so that's an example of a past belief system. And so how do you break away from that? You have to really analyze where that's coming from. Is that coming from me, or is it coming from something that was ingrained in my subconscious, right?
So in your own life, did you have any of those belief systems ingrained in you that were anchors, and how did you kind of recognize them, and how did you get over them? What was like because I think everyone has, anchors in their life that they have to get over in order to get to that next level. I can identify several of mine. What were yours?
Well, I think one of mine was, I think that I lived with certain family members giving me approval, and others were more critical and more pushy and more, they had higher expectations, which is a positive and a negative, because when you don't live with a lot of approval, you go searching for it. And so it's almost like something is chasing you, and it's to achieve. And so I recognized early, oh my God, I have this relentless pursuit of approval, right? I want it from people. I want it from businesses. I want it so my entire life, I just went into an obsession of going out there and doing businesses and being successful, and it doesn't stop. And so I really have to analyze it and think, you know what? I'm good enough, right? I'm somebody that I'm happy with my progress, and I am able to celebrate victories, and it's okay to celebrate victories, and to feel good, and to breathe, and to stop running, right? So I think that's important for you to analyze, like, what is that ghost that is chasing you, or what is that those barriers that were infringed upon you as a child. And normally they do happen when you're a child. So, and analyzing that is the first thing, becoming aware. And then the second thing is really being proactive about, like, that's not me. It doesn't have to be me. I have a choice in how I should think about this, and how I should act, and how I perceive myself, right? So I think those things are very, very important, because in the end, you're going to live a happier life if you accept yourself.
I think that's a really, really good point, and I think we're on the right track here. What can you do? I know you talk a lot about, like, language. How does that kind of catalyze this process?
Well, language is obviously, we have to pay attention to how we speak to others and how we speak to ourselves. And internally is obviously the first step is, do I speak to myself in a way that encourages who I am, what I want to do? Or do I speak to myself in a way that I take confidence away from myself? I take, do I victimize myself? Do I do I speak in words that help me to become stronger? And, do I say, like, I'm an incredibly achieved person. Anything that I put my mind to, I achieve. Or do I say to myself, you know what, I may not reach this objective. I may not reach this goal. I may not, the market's not there. Or am I constantly second guessing myself, right? So you need to pay attention to that first. And then, because that will totally contaminate the way that you approach a problem or a solution or people in general. So that starts, the foundation of how you talk to yourself is critical.
I find that a lot of people, the majority of people the majority of people have this mindset where they don't think they can do things that they probably can, where successful entrepreneurs have the mindset that they can do things that in reality it looks like they probably can. I mean, Elon Musk is a perfect example. People thought he would never get a rocket into space, said it was impossible to do that privately with private investment, and now he's doing it. He kind of manifested that project into reality.
Well, I think that it starts with imagination. So I think that internally you have to make sure that you understand the process of how you use imagination to create your reality. So if I'm just use a very basic example, if you're thirsty and you're outside in the sun and you say, you know what, I want to go inside and get a glass of water. And so you picture yourself going inside, opening the refrigerator. You look at the refrigerator, you see a jar of water. You grab a glass, you take the jar out of the refrigerator, you put the glass on a table, you serve the glass, you see the water level going up and up and up. You put your hand on the glass. The condensation of the cold water with your warm hand all of a sudden leaves fingerprints on the glass. As you can see, you're imagining this, right? So all of a sudden, my imagination created something that became real, just in that process that I just went over with you. So what's to stop you, your imagination, from creating other things besides getting a glass of water and visualizing all those steps that I took, that I just defined for you? So the more you use imagination to create the reality, the better and better you get at it. So it starts with imagining to create your reality.
Okay, so you're getting into imagination now, and I forget who was saying it. I saw this video where it was like, look around this room. Everything that you see at one point didn't exist. Like this chair, this couch that we're sitting on, this podcast equipment that we are using. At one point it didn't exist, and it started out with an imaginative thought. Someone pictured something and started creating the details of that imagined thing. And then that imagination led to them piecing it together in reality, and then now here we are looking at it, and it does exist in reality. So I've found my practice of visualization, and you've taught me a lot of this, is the more detail that you go into, the more you are manifesting it into reality. Like if I think of what's my definition of success, you ask that question a lot when we do our team building in the mornings. Before I may have said like, I'd like to be surfing and I'd like to have a nice house with a good family and be very, bird's eye view. But now, the last time we did the exercise, I went through 2 pages writing out before I even like exited the house. I remember writing, I wake up, I was describing what the floor felt like when my feet touched it, when I rolled out of bed, what the sink looked like in the bathroom, going to the refrigerator, what I had in my refrigerator, the taste and the sensations that I felt when eating the food within my refrigerator, going outside and the view that I was seeing, the sensations that I was feeling on my body, where my headspace was at. And creating that detail does like bring it into reality, because now I can like take that detail and execute a process based on it in reality that's like actually getting me to there. The more that I'm thinking about it in detail, the more that it is actually happening in reality. Does that kind of make sense? Is that the process that you use for visualization?
Yeah, I think that's just it. The more specific you are, the closer you're going to get to reality. And obviously there's the inverse way to think of this, and you think, how did you come up with that imagination? You came up because it's based on reality. It's based on something you've previously perceived. And so that imagination is based on reality. So there's an argument there. Does imagination come first? Where's the resource that created that imaginative process? Where's that coming from? Is it coming from past sensory experiences? Probably, right? And so I think that another thing that's very important is as an entrepreneur is you don't just want to imagine the good things happening. You also want to imagine the bad things that could happen and the challenges that could happen. And you want to go into as many different outcomes as possible, because the more that you imagine, the closer you are to understanding when it does happen in a way that you imagined it. I don't know if that makes sense, but
do you find that you, like, when you imagine something, like, it actually unfolds as you imagined it?
Yes, absolutely. And
do you have an example of that?
Well, I think you guys know in a lot of the business communication meetings that we've had, that I like to research people before I go to the meeting. And so I will go through that meeting with a person over and over again, and how the communication is going to happen, where am I going to sit, what am I going to say, what are they going to say, and how the harmony of that relationship, how I want it to happen. And so I will probably, in important meetings, I'll go through those meetings maybe 100, 200 times in my imagination before it happens. And obviously over the years, you start to figure out how you can have that communication go the way you wanted it to go. And so I think that you just get better and better at creating that reality and the outcome that you want to happen in those meetings.
So once you've done the visualization, how do you bring that into reality?
Well, I think that you have to control your external environment first. You want to sit and be in a place where you're going to have uninterrupted communication channels. So you don't want to be in a loud place. You want to make sure that everybody's relaxed, and you want to control so that nothing will throw you off that imagination that you had of how that outcome, how that meeting was going to go. So you want to control the external first, and then that way your imagination is basically uninterrupted, right?
Yeah. So this is a good segue. This, I feel like, is the most important lesson that I have learned and adopted in my entrepreneurial journey, is to control. I can't control the external circumstances, but I can control what I do. And I see a lot of people say, I didn't make it. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not happy because X, Y, and Z happened. My boss was a dick, or, I got lied to, or, all these external circumstances. And when you think like that, you are at the disposal of external circumstances. Whereas if you take every situation and have the perspective to say, what could I have done better in that situation? Then you are taking every situation into your control, and you are actually controlling your destiny. Sometimes, I'll go into an opportunity and it really does seem like I'm doing everything in my power, but the person on the other side of the table really is just being a dick and an asshole and anchoring the opportunity. But I can't control him. And so for me to just get fixated on the external factors, the problems with that person, it doesn't help me to control those situations in the future. Whereas if I look at that situation and say, okay, although that person was being a dick and holding up this opportunity, where could I have changed my communication to connect with that person better, to take control of that opportunity? Do you find that, is that kind of how your mindset works? How are you controlling, your outcomes?
Well, you have to be very comfortable if the outcome doesn't go the way you wanted it to go. That's part of being a leader, right? You're going to have things that are beyond your control or that you didn't foresee. And so being comfortable is a very, very important part of being an entrepreneur, because you're going to deal with chaos. And And how you react to the chaos, or how you react to a circumstance you didn't know was going to happen, is in your control. So that's the way you should look at it. We always deal with things that are challenges, and so finding the solutions should be something that you welcome and you're comfortable with. So once you get to that comfort level of, anything is manageable, right? So you should put into your mind all the time is like, I'm ready for those challenges. I love those challenges. I joke around a lot, and I'll say, like, we live in the heat as entrepreneurs. We love the fire, and that's actually a metaphor that Teddy Atlas used in the corner in a fight. He was in the corner, and he looks at Timothy Bradley, and he really needed to win the last round to win the whole boxing match. And he looks at him and he goes, we live in the heat. This is how we survive. We are firemen. We're used to this. So go out and knock him out. And it's a great speech. And I use fire a lot in my in when I'm coaching entrepreneurs, because we have to be comfortable with challenges and extreme circumstances. And so that's something that you have to train your mind to be comfortable in. And once you do train your mind and you can laugh at that extreme pressure that you're going to go under, then you're going to be successful.
How do you deal with, what's your process when you start having those stressful situations, when the chaos starts happening?
Well, I joke around a lot. I try and take things in stride, and I always joke around, there's another arrow that entered my body, and I picture myself breaking the arrow, throwing it on the ground, and keep going. And I kind of use that image to make fun of extreme circumstances. And I actually will mention it to a lot of my friends, like, I got one in the chest today. I broke the arrow and I threw it on the ground, and I just keep going. And so I look at those challenges and laugh. Really, I don't ever let them get to me.
So you have talked to me about, I tend to feel like, because I have, I went from a state of not being very successful, having a lot of challenges in my life, things weren't going how I wanted them to, and then kind of switching over and having the perspective and awareness to recognize what was holding me back, and to transition into a lifestyle where I do feel like I have more control over my outcomes. And so I tend to feel like everyone has that ability. And, you've told me many times, like, you just have to accept, like, 99% of people don't have the ability to make the switch. And, we kind of go back and forth on that point. But my question to you is, like, what is the commonality? What is the common ground between that 99% group that's holding them back from making the switch? Like, what are they missing?
Well, that's a complicated question, and that would take a long time to answer. But I think that 1%, I would have to say that the number one factor is your mindset. That somebody in your family helped you to develop a mindset that anything is possible, number one. And number two, I'm capable of doing anything that I want in my life. And I have the discipline, I have the belief system that I can do it. And so those are, I think, 4 things that are very important, and they're difficult things to adapt later on in life. And so you have to have that level of confidence to make it as an entrepreneur. And that comes somewhere in your upbringing. You were built mentally to withstand the high risk reward game that entrepreneurs go through.
All right, Jose. Well, I think that's a good place to end it. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to, talk to our audience. So, is there any last comments you want to make for entrepreneurs?
No, I think what you guys are doing is incredible. I think that you're really creating a culture of people that want to become more aware of what it takes to be an entrepreneur. So I congratulate you on developing this podcast, and I think that I'm excited to see where this all goes, and I'm really excited to have other people, other mentors join the group to help young people succeed in life and have the right value and ethical foundations, because the world is can be incredibly disappointing at times with the way that our values are jeopardized, and I think that creating a positive culture is really important. So congratulations to you guys on doing this, and I think that you're only going to get more momentum from it.
Well, again, I appreciate you coming on. If anyone wants to reach out or has any more questions for Jose, you can find him on LinkedIn or on Instagram at Jose Goldner. And with that being said, that concludes episode 1 of Shakin Hands. I'm your host, Jack Moran. You can find me on Instagram at Blue Collar Kid. That is Blue Collar, KEHD. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions or feedback. And other than that, tune in next week for some more interesting people and conversations. See ya.